Hi everyone, this is Dr. Diane Hayden with Costerella for How to Thrive in These Changing Times, What Your Soul is Calling You to Do Now. So I'm excited. Today we're going to be talking about astrology, but we found something on Facebook that I think we wanted to just touch on a little bit first. You had a really interesting post about it's a Three of Diamonds year, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And then there was something else about the month and I think the week.
Yes. Yes, it's a Three of Diamonds year. It is a King of Hearts month and a 10 of Hearts week.
Yep.
Right. So saying a little bit about that, because I guess what I want to say is astrology, all of these ancient wisdoms not only apply to each one of us individually in terms of us each individually being a microcosm of the world, but they also apply to the macrocosm, which is the world collectively itself. So Three of Diamonds year, ironically, so if I bring it down to an individual, Donald Trump is the Three of Diamonds. And his energy, or actually the energy that the world is now encountering in terms of being a Three of Diamonds, is an ambivalence about values. So do I want this or do I want that? Is being at home a value that I've obviously been denied because I've had to be at work all these years? And now I'm looking at it from a different perspective because the world has ordered to me to be home. So it's exploring. Three, again, is a number of openness, and it's a number of exploration and, not necessarily deciding or committing to what value you want. But just being up at the buffet table of values. So is money more important to me than love? Is love more important to me than money? Whatever the value system is, we are all being asked to explore that at a deeper level this year, somewhat because of the pandemic. Certainly a lot of our anger and mistrust and projection and all that is focused on Donald Trump because he's the head of this country. So ironically, I find it interesting that he happens to be the Three of Diamonds and the Ace of Spades, which is about transformation. And so if we stay with the cards here for a little bit, I don't know if I mentioned this in one of the other weeks that we did a Zoom call, but I looked up I put July 4th, 1776 up on my database to see what macrocosmically the cards have in store for the United States. And ironically, I see that the Ace of Spades is the support card for our culture, in the sense that death of the old, beginning of the new. So things need to die, things need to end before we start anew. And obviously we are in a period of grief and mourning about the old, about the way life used to be. And we're in that long haul of, awaiting, finding a new door. We don't know what the new door is going to bring. And so most people that have been familiar with grief in their lifetime understand that it's a long, dark hallway. And I would say macrocosmically, that's what we're in right now, where we're exploring these different values. So Three of Diamonds, exploration of different values, what's important to individuals, what's important to families, what's important to our culture as a whole. So it's interesting that is the year. Then the month is a King of Hearts month. So April has been a King of Hearts month, which I would agree, because the King of Hearts is the card that holds the highest amount of love consciousness. So the King of Hearts knows all about love, and he knows how to be more compassionate. He knows how to be more loving towards both himself, his family, his fellow man. He comes here equipped with an understanding of love consciousness. So this month, I would say, based on most of the posts on social media and on what this opportunity to go within is starting to connect with people, is that what's most important is love. Loving your family, loving other people, letting go of small petty differences, reaching out, making connections, seeing how people are, taking care of small businesses. All of the humanitarian energy that we've seen as a result of this pandemic is clearly indicative of what the King of Hearts is all about. He knows that anyway. And so he's really happy to see that this month has been a massive, turnaround in people's selfie orientation and moving more into community awareness of loving each other, loving our neighbors, all of the above. We're all in this together. I've heard that many times, and so the King of Hearts has said, that's been the case from the beginning, guys. You've forgotten it. And so anyway, so that would be the month. And then this week is a 10 of Hearts week. So 10 of Hearts is usually the audience, the performer, large groups of people coming together. And certainly, again, we may be doing it virtually, but let's face it, before this pandemic, we weren't doing it virtually. We weren't doing it, naturally, or, we weren't coming together and saying, hey, let's get everybody on a Zoom call, or let's go over to somebody's house and have a connection about whatever it is, or let's come up with more creative ways of loving ourselves and each other. These things were not happening before. So the 10 of Hearts is happy to bring, it means a lot of hearts. When you take the number 1 and you exponentially, expand it to a 10 by adding a 0 after it, it means not just one heart, but a collective coming together of all hearts. I mean, Michael Jackson may be a bad example, but he was the 10 of Hearts. So he was a performer. He loved the audience. He loved performing. So it's interesting, if I look at the United States and I look at this year, the homework card for this year for the United States is the 10 of Hearts. So the Pluto card is saying, transform your energy, United States. Transform it from the selfie energy of the 1 to the exponentially loving energy of the 10, and get out there and connect more and stop the self-isolating and the, somewhat addictive relationship with your own busyness, and start to, find out what really matters. And so I think that happens when you've taken away all of our amusements, so to speak, and our distractions, one of them being workaholism. So at any rate, I think it's interesting that the homework card for this year for the United States is the 10 of Hearts. So we're being challenged to come together as a group. And it's not something that is particularly natural for most of us, because we've been living in this screen-centered world, so to speak, for many, many years, and have had our value systems, in my opinion, quite dysfunctionally prioritized. They've been about, things that really have nothing at all to do with how we're going to feel at the end of our lives. So at any rate, 10 of Hearts, Pluto, Ace of Spades environment card for the United States. You need to die a lot of mini deaths this year. I mean, I know most of us go to the literal translation of what that means, but it's really not so literal. It's more that, you know, every single day that we get up in this new order is a reminder that the old order is no longer. And so what is that? What does that mean? And where do we want to go with it? So we're in this long haul of waiting. How are we going to change that? How are we going to transform it? So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to say about this year in terms of the cards, but I think that for right now, that probably, oh, that's right. The other spread for the United States, the environment card is the 9 of clubs, which is interesting. Today is the 9 of clubs day. So anybody born today is the 9 of clubs. And the 9 of clubs also says, let go of old ways of thinking, let go of old ways of communicating, let go of anything that is stagnant or stagnating your life that no longer works. Let go of the people that are no longer resonating at the level that you need for your own health and growth. Let go of thought patterns, familial thought patterns, old energies that are in the underbelly of your grief as an individual. Let go of those. You know, because the only way we're going to move forward as a world is for people to work on letting go. Is, I said this the very first week that we came together, is to work on their grief issues. We are in a period of mourning, and this is not only about someone in our family passing. This is about, you know, the life that we've known is in the process of passing. And what do we see for ourselves individually on the other side of that? So today, 9 of Clubs Day, also the card of universal knowledge. So, you know, clubs is thinking, so a lot of knowledge up in the head. 9 is, you know, the ending of the way you translated knowledge in your life prior to this. Now, how do you want to move forward? So interesting that we're speaking today on this topic. So
yeah. It's funny. Before we got on, Karen and I were just talking quickly about how she's got our Zoom call going, and then she's got another Zoom call going on another computer that she's recording so she can watch it later. And I'm like, see, this is what we're doing. We've just figured other ways out to keep connected to technology, to busyness, to whatever. And I'm not saying that it's all bad, because and one thing that she said, which I'm the same way, is she's learning. Like, there's so many things right now that she's learning about and she's fascinated with, and, you know, that kind of thing. And I think that there's value in that too. But I also feel like, I wonder if we've just replaced, you know, running around outside with running around on Zoom calls.
Well, I mean, that's a possibility, but I guess what I would say is it's an improvement. It's moving in the right direction. It's a baby step, perhaps, because we're connecting more.
Right.
You know, we're connecting more with each other. Before, the busyness was, it seemed to me to be a self-isolating sort of busyness. Everyone was busy in their own cubicles. Now, on some level, we brought those individual cubicles into one, and we're talking about it. We're at the awareness level, right? You know, where we're looking at it. And, you know, I don't know where this will go from here, but I certainly think a FaceTime call is an improvement over an audio call. You know, and so, you know, or a FaceTime video is an improvement, because we are social beings. And this is indicative of the fact that we need this socialization. So now we've gone back to what we originally should have been doing prior to all of this, which is connecting.
Right.
You know,
and it's better than texting,
which
is what we normally would be doing.
That's right. Absolutely. Not a lot of vitality in the typed word, you know.
Right,
So,
exactly,
so
exactly. All
yeah.
right, awesome. So let's move on to astrology. Um,
Look,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I wanted to say that um, in keeping with moving on to astrology, today is an extremely significant day. And so this is an astrological topic that I can't ignore as part of this call. Today marks the beginning of Pluto retrograde. So for the next 5.5 months, from April 25th, which is today, until October 5th, Pluto, which is the huge planet, the homework planet. Those of you who've had readings, I've talked about your homework for the year is under the direction of Pluto. Pluto is the planet that says, I need transformation from you guys, or I need transformation from you individually, and this is where I need it in this particular area. So Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn and will continue to be in the sign of Capricorn for these next 5.5 months. And the heaviness of this planet moving backwards will actually ask each and every single one of us to start to really, if we think we've done it already, we're going to get another shock. It's really going to ask us to explore our shadow sides, to explore our repressed issues, to uncover and heal that which our minds perhaps have misinformed us with believing that, oh, we've been there, done that. I already healed from the death of my father, or I already healed from that divorce, or I'm, or that job firing, or that was 20 years ago. Pluto says, no, you haven't. There's many, many, many layers within the psyche, layers that your mind has been capable of distracting you from because of the externalized distractions that the world has afforded you. Now you're not going to be afforded those distractions. Now you're going to have to do the work. So these next 5.5 months are going to be about facing your subconscious fears and desires. The foundation essentially is going to be shaking. So things are going to come up that right now in this moment, you can't even imagine what those things could possibly be or why. So a couple of nights ago, this is just a tiny little example. And I believe when something like a planet turning retrograde is going to happen on a certain date, you start to get ready for it, and your internal system is starting, mine is anyways, it starts to feel it before it actually happens. So I have not purchased a laptop computer in probably 15 years, because the last time I was given a laptop computer was by my son, who is no longer in our family system. And so my children have been saying, he was an IT guy, and he's very good with computers. And so he and my daughters all gifted me with this laptop, which I have been using for card parties, for all of my, I just use it all the time for my metaphysical work. However, it's ancient. And now that we've started with Zoom calls, and I'm coming over here to my daughter's and having my son-in-law help me get set up and all that sort of thing, I'm like, everybody's been telling me, Mom, you have to get a new computer. You have to get a new computer. You have to get a new computer. And I've been just like, okay. Well, finally this week I purchased a new computer. And I woke up the other night and just this recognition came to me of, because when the computer arrived on Wednesday, I went to open it and became extremely emotional. And then realized when I went to bed that night and woke up in the middle of the night, that part of the reason that I may have subconsciously been holding on to it was because, you know, it was given to me by my son, who I haven't seen in 6 years. So that is an example of the work where, you know, I can say to you, oh, I've cried tons of tears since he's been gone and whatever, but no, we just, the planets, the arrangement of this Pluto retrograde is going to start to clean out the corners of the dust that we think we've gotten to, and we haven't. So I want to say there's 4 planets that will be the least, or 4 signs that will be the least affected by Pluto retrograde, and they are Taurus, Virgo, Scorpio, and Pisces. They will be the least affected.
Why is
the
that?
other signs, why? You know, it has to do with I mean, astrological transits, what's going on in the sky, what's hitting off with what. I'm not, you know, I'm not a master certified astrologer, so I don't know, but I'm sure it has to do with the movement of the planets and why those particular planets are not directly under the line of fire as much.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they,
So-
let me just see if I understand this. When you say those 4 signs will be the least affected,
Right.
are we saying that the work is going to be easier for someone in those 4 signs, or?
Right.
Okay.
Easier, may not necessarily challenge them as deeply as the other signs, you know. Yeah, that's I know that most people are familiar with Mercury retrograde. Everybody's heard of it. We all get it because it affects certainly technology. It affects anything having to do with communication, slips of the tongue, emails, texts, you know, anything, travel, airplane schedules, all of that sort of thing. So Mercury affects communication, but Pluto affects psychological matters and the subconscious. So Pluto is a much heavier retrograde than Mercury. Mercury only lasts for 3 weeks in retrograde. Pluto is 5.5 months as we speak today, first day, October 5th last. Pluto is about changes, Mercury is about thinking. What lies beneath the surface of the subconscious mind is what Pluto is really interested in. And again, I mean, I would have to say that the universe is working in wonderful harmony with all of this, because how else do you get people, I certainly know as a therapist, how else do you get people to do this kind of work?
Unless you coop them up in their house.
Right, yes, exactly. Everybody runs from this kind of work. Everybody wants a pill to heal this kind of work. And there's no pill, and there's no real therapy other than you sitting with yourself, maybe journaling, meditating, you know, crying, doing whatever it is that you need to do to allow this stuff to come up, because it's been so neatly and methodically packed in our suitcases, being our bodies, which are like ready to explode with work that has not been done. And, you know, again, I'll go back and say the underbelly of grief and mourning that's here is, to me, more daunting than the virus.
Right.
So, you know, and I, again, energetically believe that it could contribute to our immune system not being in order for something like this. So again, you know, the universe has dictated through this virus, and maybe that's the distractionary tool that it's using to get us to stay home and do the work. I don't know. I'm just conjecturing. But, you know, it's an amazing, if you step back from it and look at it, you know, because I used to say to myself intuitively before this all happened, how are we ever going to turn this around? How are people ever going to start caring about people again?
Well, you wouldn't have guessed this.
No, I wouldn't.
Right.
That's right. Would not have, absolutely. I would not have gotten this. So, obviously, the universe, and this is where I turn my power over. Much smarter, much more intuitive, much more aware of what we all need macrocosmically. So I defer to the power and to the intelligence of the universe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It knows what we need.
Exactly.
Yep.
I think when we started these calls, we were in Aries, I believe, and now we've moved into Taurus.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything related to what we're, still being in this scenario and being in Taurus, or?
I mean, yeah, because Taurus is home and family,
Mm-hmm.
So, we're certainly, from all my understanding of the signals out there, and when there might perhaps potentially be some sort of let up in terms of us resuming what we all consider to be normalcy, we would definitely be still very much in isolation or social distancing mode throughout the sign of Taurus, which lasts from April 20th until approximately May 20th. I know
Oh.
my dentist's office and,
Yep.
Other places are now saying May 20th is when they might be reopening. That may get pushed back. I'm not here to predict any dates. I don't know about any of that, but I certainly know that ironically, that is when Gemini will start. And Gemini certainly has a lighter energy than Taurus. Taurus is home, family, stay where you are, stay home, stay in the box, remain grounded, don't go anywhere. Gemini is going to get pretty restless. So once we start pushing towards the end of May, June, again, which was my prediction numerologically, that perhaps things might lighten up in June into July, because of numbers, because June is a 1 month for the world, which would mean a new beginning. So May is a 9-month, which still means, we're at the beginning to be at the end of this on some level. What that level looks like, I again defer to the powers of the universe and the powers of people who have more power than I in terms of making this decision. But numerologically, I'm looking to Gemini and the number 1 as lightening up some of the energy. But for right now, stay home with your families, focus on the love of home and family. And that's really what Taurus is about. Creature comforts, just enjoying the security and stability that the home provides you with. The safety, right now, everybody's saying stay safe, stay home. Well, guess what? Home is safety to most people. So it's kind of a metaphorical synonym for the two words. Stay home, stay safe. Yeah, where do I feel most safe? Home. Okay, so that's where my energy feels safest, and that's what we'll be doing for at least another month, my guess is.
Right. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to say about astrology, or I have a question for you about the individual signs? I'm wondering, does it make sense to talk about each sign and how do I want to word this? Either how they're being affected or how they should expect to be affected by having to, go within and do the work. Does that make sense? Like from the perspective of, let's talk about Aquarius, how does my sign help me do that? And what are things where my sign might be blocking me from doing the internal work?
Okay, interesting question. Well, I certainly would say if we were to start with your sign, Aquarius is a sign of the new social order, or the collective water bearer, or bringing water to the masses. So, if you can imagine an individual with 2 pails of water, essentially that's a beautifully artistic metaphor for what's going on today. People are donating to the food bank. They're donating to small businesses. They're calling neighbors up and seeing if they can drop food off. That's Aquarius on every level. And Mars is in Aquarius. So the planet Mars, which is, okay, well, I'm going to show you how to do this. You're not going to just talk about it. So Mars says, let's get out and do it. So Mars is more appreciative of the fellow man, so to speak. So that would be, the positive of Aquarius during this time is the energy that's going on right now is group consciousness. So the best time for me to run a group is when Thursday is ruled by the sign of Aquarius. That's another whole wisdom, but I won't get into it. So the best day for me to run a group would be on a Thursday because Aquarius rules Thursdays. So it's a group consciousness energy. And it's interested not in the self, but in fellow man. So
what if you're an Aquarius born on a Thursday? That's me.
And tell me you don't do group.
I know. That's so funny.
On many, many, many levels, right?
Yep.
Your magazine is a tangible piece of evidence of group giving people awareness of group holistic medicine and modalities and all of that. So yeah, totally. Yes.
Right. And then what about Aquarius that would block me from doing the work? What would make it hard?
I would say one of the character flaws of Aquarius, or an area that they might have difficulty in, would be sometimes there's a detachment or just a sense of more coming from the collective so much that they may not be so able or naturally willing to do the individual piece, the work of the individual. They're looking more for the benefit of mankind or more for the collective, and they may not see themselves so much as part of that collective. Mm-hmm. So they may have more difficulty doing their own work, or they'd rather do the work for everyone else. So that might be something that Aquarius is, would be guilty of. My planetary Venus is in Aquarius. So, basically that's defined as being a friend, in a romantic relationship, but not necessarily so geared to the romance between the one-on-one. It's more like, the bigger picture. And that might not sit well with a partner, so to speak, because it's more of a detached love, so to speak. So again, I coming back to your question, I think Aquarius has sometimes difficulty connecting to their own emotional work. If that makes sense.
Oh, I totally see that. Yep. Okay, if we want to keep going
a little.
Yeah, it's been doing that back and forth. I was asking my IT wizard, Chris, and the only thing he thought of, because we all got out and we rebooted and everything. It might be that because your computer is new, it might be running updates and things in the background. So it might we're just gonna have to deal with it today, but I'm sure it'll probably work itself out over the next week.
Hopefully.
Next week. But and you could ask Jimmy about it. I don't know if that's what he might.
Or I'll go running back to my old computer.
Yeah, it was so funny when you were talking about that. I was gonna say maybe she should go back to the old computer. I don't want them to kill me though.
Right.
Okay. What about Pisces?
So Pisces. Obviously, a sign that's extremely tuned in sensitively to what's going on, maybe, and so their compassion, their sensitivity, their intuition, would come very naturally to them. When I think about love, I think about Pisces. I mean, they are, you know, they're just tuned into the love. I mean, they're just very sensitive and sweet and caring and loving people. So reaching out and, you know, bringing food for a sick loved one, or you know, letting go of the ego and making that phone call to somebody that you've had, I don't know, a conflictual issue with in the past, that would come very easy for Pisces to some extent, because they just naturally come from love. So, you know, an easy sign to have during this time when everybody's saying, we got to focus on the love, we got to get out of our heads, and we got to focus on the heart. Pisces would have an easy time with that. The negative, or the part that might get in the way is they can sometimes get very confused. You know, the fish going upstream, the fish going downstream, they may not be able to sort out. There could be a lot of fear, because the confusion can create fear. So Pisces, because they're so sensitive, they could be overwhelmed by the fear of what this all means, what this may mean for them individually. You know, they could really, the virus could be the fear, in addition to the actual virus. So that could be concerning, because they may not feel very grounded. It's a water sign, so their lack of grounding could create more fear. So that would be a difficult aspect for them.
Yeah, I totally see that in a couple
Yeah.
Pisces that I know. Definitely tend towards more of the overwhelm and fear,
Yes.
and oh my God, what's going to happen? And I don't have
That's right.
control over this. Yeah.
That's right. Well, remember, it's water. And I mean, how many of us have control over water, or over a lot of water, or over the depths of water?
We
Right?
don't.
No. Right.
Right.
Exactly. We don't.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that so then if we keep going in the order, Aries is next.
So Aries, obviously I mean, Aries, when I think of Aries, they're leaders, they're out there, they're courageous, they're warriors, they're unafraid as compared to Pisces. I mean, they're, you know, we got to do this. Let's get out there and do this. Let's get this started. They're great starters, self-starters, they're initiators. They're the first ones you want to put into battle, so to speak. So, you know, I would see them in a very positive light, in the sense that they could take the initiative to, you know, to deal with this, and to not be so consumed with fear or with procrastination. They would get out there and get things moving. And from the negative perspective, I mean, Aries, you know, sometimes has been accused of too much I. You know, and I think sometimes some of that is you know, we're projecting a lot but onto them, but you know, there is an energy of this is about me, or they may have a more difficult time with the idea of collective energy. So they want to be the soldiers out there, out in front, but they may forget that they, you know, have a circle of people with them also that are, you know, whether it be family or whatever the case may be, they're so much into what they have to do or moving forward that they may forget the whole. So a lot of times their emphasis on the I and not the we could get in, what do they say? There's no I in team.
Yeah.
So that may interfere with their energy moving, you know, moving collectively here in a time when that's what we need.
Okay. Taurus?
Taurus is, wow, more than happy to be home, more than happy to be connected to family and loved ones, loving the safety that the home and that their circle perhaps provides to them, feeling grounded in this type of climate. You know, I think that, yeah, That's really you know, of course, I think also Taurus sometimes can be certainly to some extent money oriented. So, you know, on a negative level, I mean, there might be some fears around loss of wealth or the economy, and focused a lot on that. Sometimes Taurus can be very, what do I want to say, like a bull, you know, digging its heels in to a certain situation, maybe somewhat resistant to seeing more than one point of view. So they may be very linear in their acceptance of this pandemic and what's going on, as opposed to seeing other possibilities or other ways of thinking about things. So they're more, you know, they're more so focused on the ground and not looking around. I mean, the bull is head down and kind of like going for it. So sometimes there can be that black and white thinking of a Taurus that could interfere with, you know, well, what about this? Let's think about it from this point of view, more of an adaptability. They're not so, they feel most secure in non-adaptability and kind of almost an inflexibility. And this is a time that we really need to be flexible and adaptable to other possibilities, because this is about change and Taurus doesn't like change. So I guess maybe I want to say that.
Right. Yeah. Gemini.
Gemini. Gemini, as opposed to Taurus, loves the options, loves the possibilities, keeps things lighter. So not so kind of, you know, with staying somewhat on the surface. I'm not saying that Geminis are superficial, but they have a little knowledge about a lot of things. So they're very mentally articulate and verbal and certainly very bright. But there is that duality to their nature where, you know, they can see the possibilities and they can explore them. It's like number 3 in some ways. It's like, wow, we could do this, or we could do that, or what about this? And they don't tend to go down deep into the waters like Pisces does. So it's kind of it's a better, like I'm very happy right now because Venus is in Gemini. When Venus moves into Cancer, it's going to get a little more watery and a little heavier. So the Gemini aspect keeps things lighter and doesn't get so heavy about where this is all going and doom and gloom. And then let's see, you know, the negative piece is that, you know, maybe in that lightness is somewhat an avoidance of reality. So they don't really also want to explore things too much more deeply than where they're at. And they might get, I don't want to say confused, but just scattered sometimes. Gemini sometimes can get scattered in, you know, I don't know, different activities, or, you know, always smiling or always keeping a light. But then sometimes there's an aspect of non-reality in some of that too, where it's great to be that way. It's great to be usually positive and keep things light. But then on the other hand, what are you avoiding by doing that? So this pandemic is an opportunity, as we just talked about, to do some deep subconscious work. Gemini may not really be happy about doing that. You know,
Right.
that might be something that is going to be more challenging for them. And then where are we? Cancer.
Cancer. Yep.
Right. So Cancer, being a water sign, again, similar to Taurus, loving the home and family. The positive there is very nurturing. Again, may find it very easy to be very protective and affectionate towards loved ones and family and reaching out and doing service deeds, whether it be cooking meals or, I don't know, tending in the garden or cancers. I mean, that's where the word cancer comes from, is growth. So growing the family by nurturing it, by cooking for it, by loving it, by keeping people all together. So they may have an easier time with that aspect because we're being asked to be home, and they love that place. The negative is that Cancer is the crab, and on the outside there's the hard shell, and on the inside there's the soft underbelly. And that's to protect the crab while he's on the beach from enemies. The issue is that in this case, the enemy could potentially be himself or herself. So there could be deeper subconscious issues that this pandemic and the planet want the Cancer to work through. And that hard shell on the outside may be somewhat resistant to going there because there's such deep sensitivity underneath that hard shell. And he's protectively developed that over his lifetime to protect him from hurts that he may have felt much earlier in his life from family or whomever that have served him well. Now Pluto retrograde and this pandemic is saying, it's time to crack that shell and go deeper. So that may be challenging for a Cancer.
Yeah.
Because they're scared to go there.
Right. My friend who's a Cancer who made me breakfast this morning is listening, and she just texted me, "That is all true."
Oh, jeez.
And she's very much like that. If you met her, she's very, like you would say, she's like really tough, strong. That's like her persona she represents, but she's extremely sensitive. But she won't let you know that.
Right.
You won't know that.
Well, and my concern is for all the Cancers out there, it's not, we are mirroring back to them what they're giving us, which is the hard shell on the outside and the tough and the resiliency and all of that sort of thing. And yes, we know that there's this other part, but the issue is it's not so much how we affect other people. It's that in affecting other people that way, we are also affecting self that way. So that hard shell on the outside has to be cracked for the sake of the Cancer who's inhabiting it. Not so much for my sake or your sake, because that resistance that hard shell has been developed initially to protect self from the outside forces that were not necessarily as aware of their sensitivity as they needed to be from the time they were little. So now it's like, okay, I got to let go of this because those people are no longer in my life. And if they are, they certainly are not in my life in the way they were when I was little. So now I need to do this for me. So
she would absolutely validate that about the family she grew up in, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Fascinating. Okay. Yep. Leo.
Okay. Leo. So Leo is what do I want to say about Leo? Oh God, I stopped because that's the sign my son is. So Leo is very the king. Obviously, they are very fixed in their energy, and during this particular time, they also represent the inner child. Which is an interesting concept because despite the fact that they may come across as being the king and, having the answers and having a tremendous amount of pride as in being the king and being regal, they also, that pride can somewhat be a stubborn pride. So on the outside, they carry it well. There's an aura of regality. They're able to attract people to them. They have a charm about them. There's a generosity of heart about them that's very endearing and very childlike. We love it because we feel the heart more when we deal with a Leo. So like this month and this week would all be, as I said in the beginning of the call, all about the heart. So Leos are very compassionately heartfelt people, unless, you know, you injure or damage that pride. So if they feel that they're not being seen, or they're not visible in some way, or people have hurt them or criticized them or whatever, then they become extremely, I want to say, kind of very my way or the highway, and they can be the child in that way, have a temper tantrum, a large temper tantrum about not receiving the accolades or the response from people that they have believed that they have given themselves to, whether it be over the course of their lifetime or whatever. So during this particular time, I think, you know, they have to look at how old their child is. I mean, are they acting as the adult? Are they, you know, what necessarily is holding them back? Because the issue of haughtiness or prideful stubbornness or resistance to being a part of the whole, sometimes they cast themselves as being separate. I mean, even Robert Camp in the Destiny card system says that Leos only get one card, and it's instead of two, because they are a very fixed sign. There's something very different about a Leo. So that's not a really thorough explanation. It's the best one I have, but there is that energy of I'm different from the whole. I have the crown on my head, and so, but that crown gives them a lot of heart, unless they feel that their child has been wounded in some way, and then they become very difficult to engage. So I guess I would say ego is something that really usually would interfere with their doing the work.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Virgo?
Virgo is, let's see, so Virgo, usually a sign of service. So very service oriented. The most amount of healthcare workers are Virgos and Cancers. So the word Virgo, coming from the word virgin, perfectionism, white, all white. Virgos usually are very methodical about order and organization, detail oriented. So in this time, obviously, their devotion to being of service in whatever way they can be, however that translates for them, will come naturally to them. They, you know, they will extend themselves in a way that will care for others, generally speaking. So what would, for them, interfere? Again, I would have to say fear. They can be hypochondriacal at times. They worry so much. They're very health oriented, but they can worry a lot about health issues to the point of, you know, possibly they could take, I would kind of explain on some level, some of the culture that we're living in right now. And I understand it, and I'm not mocking it, but it's kind of got an obsessive compulsive energy to it, which of course, being overly methodical and overly perfectionistic and overly white about things is somewhat OCD, because you can never get, I mean, we didn't sign up for perfection before we came here. We didn't sign. So Virgos, sometimes their desire to help and be of service can also negatively affect them, because they're worried about, you know, you could go down a rabbit hole, I guess, with the cleanliness, with all of it, to the point where then they become really fearful. So that would be the positive and negative.
I totally have two Virgo friends, and out of all of us, they literally are the ones that like have not left their house. They went out and bought God knows how many groceries, like it was Fort Knox in there.
Right.
They haven't let anybody in the house. They're both living by themselves, and it's
Oh,
like a bunker.
oh my, yes, yes. So a bunker, yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And I would love to know how many Virgos possibly may have had something to do with the toilet paper, depletion and the paper towel depletion,
Now I
because
know
it's
whose
all
house to
white,
go to.
right? I mean, it's like really,
That's
but
funny.
it's just, yeah, it can potentially go down. What am concerned about with that sort of thought process is that you go down a rabbit hole and then it's depleting your nervous system.
Yeah.
So now it's not healthy anymore. So your intent to be healthy has now worked into, obviously an obsessive fear about health, and now it's depleting you on an immune level. So that would be my thought about Virgo.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Okay. Libra.
Libra, very much balancing the scales. Libra, wanting things to be equal, wanting things to be appear to be beautiful, hoping. So they have a hope and a belief that there's a balance to our lives, and they want to do anything that they can to create balance. So even if it means sometimes at the cost of themselves, their own balance. So they may be so overly concerned with, how things appear, or whether somebody's going to get upset with them about what they say, if they say no as opposed to yes, or vice versa. They don't want to tip the balance so much that they tip the balance within themselves, because they're saying yes on the outside, no on the inside. So that would be probably more of a negative for the Libra. The positive is that, they want beauty, they want balance, they want harmony, and they will be very accepting of whatever it is that they need to do to move forward, to keep all of our differences somewhat harmonious. So I think they would contribute to the whole, because they would want balance and they would see it as a positive. But just as long as they don't do it to the detriment of themselves, so that the balance isn't top heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Scorpio.
Scorpio. Okay. So Scorpio is obviously another water sign. That's about the mysteries and the depths, and also about power. And so Scorpio speaks to, in this time, I think, determination, almost similar to an Aries, but may not be as fiery, but they are also the warriors of the zodiac. So they're ruled by Mars. So they have a lot of disciplined determination and intensity of purpose. Very attractive sign in the sense that they can be very charismatic in their mystery of how they go about things. They may not be usually verbal because they keep a lot to themselves. But they have this, like I said, this belief in almost like the eagle would be representative of where a Scorpio wants to go. I mean, he can either be, obviously, in this lifetime, if he's not doing his work, he can be extremely greedy for power, sex, control, all those things. But the transformation that he's hoping for is to rise to the sign of the eagle and to rise above all of those earthly negatives. So he understands power, he understands control, and I think positively he could really move the masses forward, because he's determined and he's, very intensely powerful himself. But the negative would be, more of a kind of not non-sharing attitude, control issues, you know, not willing to necessarily open up. So this Pluto retrograde will be difficult on some level for Scorpio, even though it looks like it's one of the signs that's least affected. But, you know, they also have a lot of deep-seated issues, like all of us, that they don't necessarily want to share or uncover or look at. So it may be, that may be a challenge for them. And then what?
Oh, then Sagittarius, yep.
Okay, Sagittarius is Sagittarius is all about you know, learning high-minded philosophies, looking at things optimistically, always seeing the glass as half full, which is a hugely wonderful energy to have right now. They're, you know, they are the friends of the zodiac. I mean, they always usually have a lot of friendships. They develop their friendships. They have a ready smile on their face. They're very philosophical. They love higher learning. So all of that would be like, hey, let's look at the bright side of this, guys. Let's see what this pandemic is doing for us. Let's move forward with this. Let's not be resistant to change. Change is good. So they're spontaneous, they're fiery, that sort of thing. The negative would be, again, I mean, I would say that it's almost like, okay, you can't, optimism is wonderful. And I, you know, as a Capricorn, I would love to have a little more Sag in me, because it's just hugely energizing, as long as it also isn't taken to the place where we're usually optimistic to the point of not being realistic at times, or don't want to go down and do the deeper work because I want to stay on top and see this as something that is only for the greater good, and there's no shadow work to be done here. So they may shy away from that because they want to keep things optimistic and forward moving. So.
Okay, and last but not least, Capricorn.
Capricorn. Oh boy. Okay, always tough talking about yourself.
Pretend you're talking about somebody else.
Yeah, right, exactly. So Capricorn is, you know, a very determined, kind of the mountain goat, climbing to the top, so to speak. An understanding inherently also of power, but also of climbing the mountain, not necessarily regarding money or external power, but power within the self. Like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get to the top of this mountain, whether it means I get a website accomplished before I leave this planet, or I do whatever. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. So Capricorns can be very determined, and sometimes, you know, just really, you know, I mean, just kind of a rugged individualist in terms of moving up that ladder, whatever the ladder happens to be for the individual Capricorn. But there's an innate determination and resilience about the sign that continues to do the work. The negative, of course, is as the opposite of Sag, you know, looking at the glass as half empty, somber, you know, focusing on what could go wrong, you know, just a darker, more reserved, sometimes cynical attitude, skeptical. I certainly know, I mean, that about myself. I'm, you know, I mean, I can go there. I can go out of the box with, what is this all about? What's the meaning of all of this? What are we, you know, I can stay with the positive, but then I can also wonder about, are there other forces out there that are, you know, creating or contributing to what's going on right now, and how do we defeat those forces? So, you know, there's that cynicism, there's that skepticism, but then there's also that determination that, you know, this is we're going to do this one way or the other. I'm going to listen to those voices, but I'm not necessarily going to follow them. And I have to be aware of my own shortcomings. And so that's how I would define Capricorn succinctly.
Wow. So
Probably a lot more, but
yeah.
that's
No,
how I see.
I was just going to say, I don't know if other people were thinking about people in their life when you were going through this, but I was thinking about, like every single sign. I'm thinking about, either a family member or a friend, and it is spot on.
Is it
ridiculous? Yes. Oh my gosh. Like literally.
good?
Like I could pull out from every sign these exact characteristics on both the positive and
And the negative.
the shadow
Yeah,
side too. Yeah, totally. It's fascinating.
Okay. You surprised me with that question, so I said, "Oh God, how am I gonna?" I haven't put any thought into it, but it was all top of the head.
You just channeled that. Come on, that was brilliant.
Hey, you know what? I believe that anyway. I believe that whatever comes out of this tunnel, so to speak, is a channel. If I'm being asked to do higher work, it's not me. I'm just the messenger. So
yeah.
Yep, totally.
Great, awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so couple things before we finish for today. The lucky person that we're going to do a little mini reading for today is Cliff. So I'm going to unmute him, but he may need to. Can you hear us, or can we hear you?
Yes,
hey.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So we need the month and day of your birthday.
May 16th.
Okay.
May 16th. Interesting. Okay, so you are the 3 of diamonds and the 7 of hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Taurus, obviously, and 3 of diamonds, as we spoke about today, is when I think about the 3 of diamonds off the top of my head, I think financial creativity. Usually very financially creative sign. It's in diamonds. It doesn't only mean money or being financially creative with money. It can be, but it also can be, being financially creative with ideas, or just being creative with different options for values. Like, what do I want to do? What's more important to me? Do I want to do this, or do I want to do that? In this lifetime, being a 3 means that you don't have to decide necessarily. That you're here for the adventure and the experience, and not necessarily the commitment, whether it be a commitment to a relationship or a commitment to a value system. You're just up at the buffet table of value systems, and you're deciding, or maybe I'm going to do this, or how about that, or what if I put my money here, or what if we did this, or what, and and unfortunately the culture believes that it doesn't care whether you're born as a 3 or a 5 in this lifetime, because those are the 2 numbers that are not here to basically make a decision. The culture wants you to commit to whatever it is, and to get in that box, and to stay safe and stable in that box, and then you're considered quote unquote normal, whatever that is. And the system of metaphysics says that 3s and 5s are here purely to experience and to exude a sense of adventure about life, and to not decide. And that does not determine your normalcy. So I mentioned Donald Trump. I know that name creates, whatever skeevies with most people these days. But what I want to say is, he has been a man to some extent throughout his life that has obviously been somewhat financially creative, I would assume. And he certainly doesn't close the box on anything. He's always got options going on. Whether they're options that we value or not, that's another story for a political discussion. But the obvious is that he's always presenting different scenarios. So 3s are open, they're expressive, and they're about, in this case, you're about exploring different values. Your second card, 7 of Hearts, is just a wonderful, lovely nature to have been gifted with. It is the card of unconditional love, where it's very easy for you to love others without, or maybe it's something that you've worked on in your lifetime, or you worked on it in a past lifetime, but it's an unconditional acceptance of others without a lot of expectation about the way they need to love you or be with you or whatever. So seven is, the number seven in numerology is about lessons. And obviously in your case, it's in hearts. So lessons in love. So whatever your early lessons in love were, whether it be with obviously family members, family of origin, parents, you know, siblings, all of that, you have learned to let, or are learning, as we all are, but I think the Seven of Hearts has an easier time with it to some extent, to let go of the way love has to look. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be in the box. You know, you have a sense that this energy is supporting you with a pure, unconditional acceptance of the other and yourself as well. So those are both really nice numbers. The 3 being more open and expressive, the 7 being more reserved and refined, but also very loving. So nice nature to have.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
That's me. You know what? I don't have a lot of money, but I'm always doing my budget, and I'm always making sure ends meet and robbing from Peter to pay Paul. And I love everybody. That's the truth. I'm a hugger.
There you go. That's the 7 of Hearts. Absolutely. Yeah. And so putting that love out brings you back opportunities to rob Peter and pay Paul, so to speak. You know.
Yeah.
So that's great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. So real quick, I wanted to ask you a personal question for myself about something that some bizarre thing that happened in my life this week.
Okay.
So you know that Thursday was the day my dad passed away 25 years ago.
Yes.
My aunt died on the same day.
Oh. And is your aunt his sister?
Yes, his sister. And here's the funny thing. So my father had 2 twin sisters. They were about 12 years younger than him. And this particular sister they weren't identical. They didn't look alike. In fact, this sister looked like she could have been my dad's twin sister. She looked exactly like him. And she was sort of this personality. Their birthday is May 17th.
Okay.
The twin sisters, May 17th. Yep. And my dad is November 13th. And the personality of this sister, my aunt, who just passed, was very like matriarchal, boisterous, had to run the family, you know, basically like took over my grandmother's house and all of that. And there's like a lot of like other stuff that I won't get into that went on. But anyway, her personality was, you know, it's all about me. It's me, you know, like, look at me. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And it was just so funny because my mother and I both said, out of the 366 days this year that she could pick to pass away, she picks the exact day.
Same
and my mother goes, you know what? It's just like it was in the entire life. Your father couldn't have anything to himself.
Oh,
and I'm like, that's interesting. That is so interesting.
So when did she didn't just pass 2 days ago?
Yes.
No. Oh, she just passed.
On the 25th anniversary.
On the 20th. Oh my God. And here we are talking about it on the 25th.
Right.
So that's very interesting. I want to say, just in terms of relationship between your father and your twin aunts, that he was the 7 of clubs. Okay, that was his birth card. And their second card was the 8 of clubs. They were the 2 of diamonds, but second card was the 8 of clubs, which means that your father was moon, or the supportive figure to their 8 of clubs. And the 3 of them knew each other in a past lifetime, because 7 of clubs, 8 of clubs tells me that they were connected previously to when they came in. So he had decided, for karmic reasons that you and I and everybody else is not aware of, that he was going to be their support system on some level, that he was going to.
I can tell you exactly what happened. So both of my aunts got pregnant before they got married, and we're talking back in like the early 60s, okay?
Yeah.
So, and my father was single at the time. I think he and my mother were dating, but he obviously, much older than them, but he was not married to my mother. And he basically stepped in and pretty much took care of those 2 firstborn children. The aunt that just passed away, she had a single and only child son. And so my dad would take him almost every weekend and go play ball with him or whatever, like just, basically that's what he did. And then my other aunt, like 10 months later, gets pregnant before she was married.
Oh,
the stories they used to tell me were like,
crazy.
it was just crazy. And my grandfather was the chief of police of West Hartford. So it's like, okay, and your 2 twin daughters who were 17 both get pregnant. Or they're out of high school and married. So yeah, so my father absolutely, like, he still lived in the house with that one sister. The other sister moved out, and she and her boyfriend went to his parents' house.
Okay.
So that's totally exactly the case.
Right. Exactly the case. So it was a karmic pact between all of them, of which we're not really aware of what all the details were from a previous incarnation where he decided to be the father figure on some level, or the support figure, whatever the case may be. And those 2 twins, obviously, each one of them individually had some lesson to teach each other. It's interesting that their lives mimicked on some, at the same age at 17, that they both, had babies, and that, who knows what those, I can only imagine what those stories were, or those incarnation lessons were for both of them to learn about. But there's no, coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. There's no coincidence that she passed on that same day. It may, there's no coincidence. On the 25th anniversary, things like that. This is kind of, so here we are, we're beginning the Pluto retrograde. So you're looking at a subconscious issue that's generationally in your family, okay? And this is how it's starting to come up. Like what, so 2 days ago, previous to this retrograde starting to, want to uncover unconscious issues, what were these relationships about? What was my father's relationship to these women? How did that affect, I don't know, his relationship to me or to my mother, or to, there's just a lot there. And I can't even begin to say what that's all about, but I think that this is starting, if you start to make these connections about dates and times, and, it's just, I don't know, like I think I told you, my mother died of breast cancer, and on the 25th anniversary of her death from breast cancer, which was last Sunday, April 19th, I had a tumor removed from my breast. And now how did the doctor, how did they decide that it was going to be the 25th anniversary of my mother's death from breast cancer? And he had been a doctor that was in New York at the time she passed. And it's just, there's just so much stuff that we don't know, and the body harbors memories. So now Pluto was saying, your body's been carrying these memories for a long time. What was your aunt what was her spirit? Did she want to reconnect with your dad? Did she want you to start to reconnect with yourself at a deeper level and look at April 23rd, which of course, interestingly enough, is Jack of Clubs Day. So April 23rd, when she passed, is a Jack of Clubs Day. That's your father's, being a 7 of Clubs male. That's his personality card in the system of hearts. I mean, system of the cards. So it's kind of like she must have had a deep connection to him all along. And then her spirit wanted to connect with him on that day and wanted you to get some sort of meaning from all of this. We're all, there's connection, Di. There's connection to all of it, So you'd have to continue to do some more work around what that's about, But anyway, it's the beginning. It's the thread, and you got to just keep
unraveling it.
Pulling at it. It'll continue to show you. So, and Pluto will help us over the next 5 months. So,
yeah.
In ways that we may not all want to, I don't know, anticipate. It's gonna be a deep time. So, but we've been given the time to do the work. So,
exactly. Right.
So.
Never going to get a better opportunity than this right now.
That's right. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So before we finish, I just wanted to you talked briefly about virtual card parties.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to say something about that, if that's something that you're going to be starting, and so
so to accommodate the times, normally I used to go to people's homes and create an individualized packet for each guest that was going to be at the party. And the individualized packet would include their 2 birth cards and then, a description of each card and some other information about the system. So I can still create those packets and then send them to people virtually. And then if people wanted to organize a group of 4 or 5 people together, or even more, to do like a Zoom call similar to this, I could then present the system, talk about the packets that I've sent to everybody before the party, and then do a group reading of sorts, similar to what I would do when I went to somebody's home. We would just be doing it virtually. So my website designer is going to put more information up about that on the website. But, it's something that certainly you could still contact me about through email or text or whatever the case may be if you have all of my information, and I'd be happy to discuss it. Actually, my youngest daughter is going to have a virtual party with 8 of her friends this coming Friday. We're going to do a Zoom thing, and it's in many ways will be very similar to if I came to your house in person, but it's just going to be a virtual house party, so to speak. So
I think it's an awesome idea, and we were trying to get something coordinated like last fall, I feel like, and the issue was a part of it was travel, and also just trying to coordinate everybody traveling and finding a location. Well, I'm like, why didn't we think of this?
That's right.
Duh.
Exactly. That's right. So see, it's opening us up. There's the 10 of Hearts Pluto. Here's an opportunity, figure it out, get together in groups. We're challenged with this, but our minds weren't open at that point, and we thought we had other options. Well, now we don't have other options, so now we're going to do it.
Right, exactly.
So,
awesome. Great. Well, your website is up there, mariannecosterella.com. People can reach out to you that way, and we will be here same time, same place next Saturday at 10. Hope you guys all have a great week, and we'll see you then.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Dee. Bye.
Bye.